Move over, big tech. Bernie Sanders is coming after the AI boom. The far-left senator is pushing for the government to, get this, take a 50% ownership stake in some of America's biggest AI companies, including OpenAI and Anthropic. He says it's time for Americans to get a cut.
The creative work of millions and hundreds of millions of people has been stolen by the wealthiest people in the world. Since AI is built on the collective knowledge of humanity, the wealth it generates must benefit humanity, not just Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. No longer would the future of AI be dictated by a handful of big tech oligarchs.
So this is really interesting because it gets to kind of the thesis of the lawsuit, the civil lawsuit we were talking before in Florida against Sam Altman and OpenAI. And Brian, you astutely read that line about having a share in the success wasn't created by them. And Bernie Sanders is echoing this right here, which is interesting to me. The second thing that's interesting, Dagan, is that they tried to kill AI. They didn't want AI to flourish, but now it is. And they're saying, well, if it is, then we want our piece of it. We're going to take our cut. And you have a Trump administration that has taken stakes in certain public companies that has sort of made it like something you can do now.
The right, it's a big circle. The right and the left meet. That's the danger of what we've said all along about the Trump administration taking equity stakes in these great American private businesses, is because you have just opened the door for exactly what Bernie Sanders is talking about, and that is potentially confiscating stakes in these great American companies. What happens when the government really gets involved, when a Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren or an AOC gets involved in the businesses and the operations of an Anthropic or OpenAI or any of these AI companies? Do you think that they will actually flourish?
Nope.
Do you think because Bernie Sanders doesn't want America to win in AI. He very clearly wants China to win based on everything that he has said and done. But this is my biggest concern with the lawsuit down in the state of Florida, what Bernie Sanders is doing. When you have young people who, a lot of them do not like AI for a number of reasons, and then you have politicians on both the right and the left coming at them, and so the public doesn't like your business model. Politicians see a company beginning to make a lot of money, you are in very dangerous water. And that's where we are. And there needs to be a pushback from industry as to, like, this is the end of the American experiment as we know it, if you let Bernie Sanders get what he wants.
But there's no way to me that this actually goes through, because people. So here's one of my issues where he says the data and the language used by AI didn't just pop into their head. It came from us, our books, our songs, our journalism, our computer code, our videos and our images and our ideas. But to me, I'm a willing participant in Meta AI, in Gemini, in Claude, in Grok, and all of that. I'm willingly putting photos or videos out there for the internet of which to scrape and then spit it back out for me. So if I don't want to be a part of this, I can choose not to participate. But I think what concerns me is Bernie Sanders seems to think that my willingness to participate and use Google means that now I automatically get owed 50% of the company. How about just say, don't participate? Don't upload your photos to Instagram. Okay, sounds good.
You can opt out, right?
Opt out.
I guess. I mean, if Bernie said all the information from OpenAI came from other people, and so we should respect their property rights and they should have to pay those people, then I'd be like, oh, that's interesting because you're actually defending property rights. But he's making this stupid argument that it's built on the collective knowledge of humanity. Everything's built on the collective knowledge of humanity. Did you write Das Kapital, Sanders? No, you did not. You're building on the collective knowledge or ill wisdom or whatever of Marx and all the other Marxists who wrote on these things. So it's a specious argument to collectivize See, what he's actually attacking is private property here, which that's his ideology. He wants to destroy private property and claim that all property is the property of the state. And man, there is no faster, clear road to serfdom than that viewpoint, as we have documented throughout history.
Can we add a layer?
That's my man, Friedrich Hayek, right there. High five from across the curvy table, Brian. Well said.
Curvy table.
Yeah.
Can we add a layer before I get a comment from you? Because there's also this. Youth joblessness is on the rise across this country, but a new Fed study says don't blame AI. Instead, the work from home boom might be the problem. The analysis shows the rise of remote work accounting for roughly 64% of unemployment growth for recent college graduates. So the question is, how is AI complicating all of these things that we're thinking about?
Well, we don't have to worry about it because we're not going to have an economy if the government takes control of the means of production of artificial intelligence. That is so incredibly problematic and short-sighted. And Bernie Sanders sounds like a bigger communist every single day. Like, his road to dementia is so singular. It's stunning, but he taps into that envy. Unfortunately, for some younger workers, they have given into that. And, you know, they also operate with envy and hubris. Not all of them. Like, there are some go-getters. There are some people out there shot out of a cannon who want to capitalize on their hard work and opportunity. Those people are showing up for work. The people who feel like, I deserve to work from home so I can do my self-care. They are cornering themselves out of jobs, because what HR departments and corporations have realized that if you have been working at your job for 10 or 15 years and you are self-motivated and disciplined, you can work from home. If you are just getting into the corporate sphere and you haven't been bullied a little bit, then, you know, you're probably a slob. In a number of ways. Like, you probably look like a slob, and you're probably undisciplined, and you work like a slob. And that's why you need people who've been there for a while to get you in the lanes and the comportment of someone who is productive.
Wow, that was a lot to take in. I will
it's
just
my
say
gift to you,
this one thing.
Jackie.
I will just say this, my take on this. The government is always looking to tax us or companies, take more, take more, take more. When we have so much fraud, waste, and abuse, they want to take from these companies now to do just more of what they have been doing. I find it utterly... I'm just going to use the word, I'm not really sure if it's appropriate, but like, I just find this disgusting to think about.
How dare you?
Going after capitalism in this way to line your own pockets. Think about what's happening in Iran.
They're not going to give that money back
They're
to
not
Americans?
giving that. No, they're not. And
Not
I
in
think,
the sovereign wealth fund?
I think about what is
way.
happening in Iran right now with this regime that has bilked the people that live there, the country that was once prospering of its oil revenue and all of the other textiles and other businesses that they were involved in. And they've used that money for nefarious means. And I just sit back and say, okay, keep voting for these people, because it's not going to end well.
Yeah, I don't expect, like, these politicians act like they're there to parent. And you know who I'm talking about. That's not your job.
Dr. Joe Biden.
You're not a CEO, you're not a parent, and you're not an educator. You're there to protect the United States. That's it, right? The only role of government.
Yes, it should be far more limited than what we've
Right.
got now. And that, unfortunately, is a virus that has infected both sides, both parties.
Coming up, property taxes might soon be a thing of the past for some in Florida. We're going to break down what that means for the state's housing market next.